Hello YouTube. The Elder Scrolls universe is full of lore mysteries, and one of them is the extinct Lilmothiit race, an intelligent beast folk race kind of resembling the Khajiit, except while the Khajiit are basically cat-like humanoids, the Lilmothiit were fox-like humanoids. Now, 4 years or so ago I already made a video on the Lilmothiit, but here I also promised that if there was significantly more lore later, I'd make another video, since we had very little back then. So here we are. All the info from the original video is here as well, so no need to watch the old one, except now I also cover a lot of the new information. So strap in, as today we're talking about the Lilmothiit again. So, the Lilmothiit, a fox-like beast race that lived somewhere in the southern parts of Black Marsh during the Meretic era, the First Era, and the first few years of the Second Era before completely going extinct. The area that they lived in likely looked something like this, with them primarily living near the coasts and in the lighter parts of the swamps for most of their history. They seem to have lived in a tribal society comprised of small towns and villages, with large parts of their population also still being active nomads, trekking from place to place in the swamps with their small tents and living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. In the years since my original video, we have gotten some unused official Bethesda concept art of the Lilmothiit, and their nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle is clearly reflected in their clothing in this concept art. They carry large packs with them, they have walking canes for trekking longer distances, and their clothes are mostly being made out of animal furs and hides, which is something that we also learn from other sources, but indicates a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. We also know that they were toy makers, as they made kites for their children to play with, and from one second-hand source that we have, we know that the Lilmothiit, while mostly tribal and nomadic, had quite a well-versed knowledge of plants and their medicinal purposes, being able to make what is likely the most advanced medicine you would find in Black Marsh's swamplands at that time, as they seem to have known more about medicine than the Argonians and the Kothringi human tribes. They were also not very warlike. There are some famous accounts of their tribes being quite skittish and rather than fight, flee and hide when strangers enter their territory, or if they're being threatened by other peoples. They seem to have more often moved their camp or even moved out of towns and cities rather than fighting with people that threaten them, with them historically apparently being quite easy targets for slavers as well, likely because they didn't fight back all that much. This may indicate that they were either a very weak people, which I think is a bit unlikely considering that they were able to survive hunting in the treacherous swamps and their concept art does depict them as warriors, or it could indicate that perhaps their culture or religion somehow heavily advocated peace, with perhaps fighting being heretical or something like that. I think that's a bit more likely than them being weak, but hey, we don't really know. Something else that we know is that the name Lilmothiit is actually not the name that this people gave to themselves. Rather, Lilmothiit is a word in the Khajiiti language which means one who is from Lilmoth, with Lilmoth being a city in Black Marsh that was originally founded by this fox race. However, on Tamriel, the name Lilmothiit is now so widely used by scholars that study the race that people have simply gotten used to using this name for the fox-like beast race, but we unfortunately have no idea what they used to call themselves when they were still alive. What is pretty funny though is that even on Tamriel having knowledge on the Lilmothiit is quite rare. While scholars on Tamriel know quite a bit, we have multiple sources of people on Tamriel who aren't scholars that don't even believe that they existed at some point, because not many non-Argonians have trekked ever that deep into the swamps to have seen the areas that they lived in, and even the areas they lived in, well, there aren't many traces of them left since they mostly used tents and very non-permanent wooden huts which rot away pretty quickly, which means that there aren't many traces of their civilization left. And by now, or really any point after the early Second or late First Era, those people who don't believe that they existed, they'll never even get to see a live one ever again, as by the early Second Era the Lilmothiit were driven to complete extinction. The final nail of the coffin for them is often considered to have been the Khanatan flu, one of Tamriel's worst epidemics. A video on the full story of that epidemic is in the description of this video. But what you need to know for this video is that the remaining Lilmothiit population by this point was wiped out completely due to the disease's quick spread and drastic effects. However, even by this point, the Lilmothiit were already considered to be a bit of a rare sighting. While at one point they had lived in quite sizable towns, seemingly starting a sedentary lifestyle a bit away from nomadic life. By the latter parts of the first era, their towns were mostly abandoned. Some say that they got pushed out by the Argonians who wanted to live in those towns. Others say that it was a more of a gradual process of Argonians moving in, them living peacefully together for a while, but then the Lilmothiit moving out of their own accord back into the swamps. But whatever the reason is, by this time most of the Lilmothiit had moved back to the swamps for some unknown reason to a nomadic lifestyle, or to live in very small villages in the deep swamps rather than in a bit bigger towns and cities near the coasts. And then the Knaten flu hit this already declining community extremely hard, to the point where none of the Lilmothiit are alive today on Tamriel. Now, a final bit of speculation is that a lot of in-universe scholars and people online in our universe have speculated that the Lilmothiit may be related to the Khajiit in some way. If that's true, then it's quite likely that they too may have had some sort of birth cycle when they were active on Tamriel. As I covered in my video on the different types of Khajiit, the Khajiit come in many shapes and sizes, with the type of Khajiit that you are born as being determined by the stances of the moons. If it's true that the Lilmothiit people were indeed related to the Khajiit, then I think that the moons may have played a significant role in their religion as well, and then there must have been different types of Lilmothiit across the swamp, maybe small ones like the Khajiit Alfik, and really big ones like the Pamar and the Senshi. But unfortunately there is no concrete proof for any of this. I mean, all that we have on their looks is this official concept art that you see in the background of this video all the time. That's all. And that's about all I can say about the Lilmothiit, and I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video and that I managed to teach you something new about the Elder Scrolls lore today. And if you did, why not return for the next Elder Scrolls lore video, probably next week, and subscribe to the channel, would really help me out. Now, if there's another big update to Lilmothiit lore somewhere down the line, I'll probably make another updated video. Who knows, but for now, I think this is enough. Now, all that remains for me to be done is to thank my top Patreon subscribers, Mr. Bernardo Binda, His Soul, Gabriel Binda, Athena Yodis, Doji, Fenrir, King Chris, Pavel T, Bentham Gwar, Volkure of Argonia, Leo Worley, and Sword of Bushido. They and all the others on screen keep this channel alive, and for that I'm eternally grateful. That said, I will see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.